Hey everybody, how's it going? I decided to go ahead and do a second video. I just installed this microphone to try to get the audio quality a little better, but it doesn't seem like it made a difference at all, so that's cool. But in this video, I wanted to just kind of go give you guys a tour of my first droid, BB-66, and show you kind of what went into him and how I put it all together and stuff like that. So we're gonna move to the floor. Welcome to the floor. This is where BB-66 normally lives, in that little cubby. I forgot to mention that I got my magnets today, and I've got the 3D printed magnet mounts for the Carrie Christie caster system to put in the new droid. So I might get to that in this video, or I might wait till the next one. We'll see. But I'm going to go ahead and open him up. Alright, so here's the main ball. He's got one removable panel here, and it's held in with these little tiny nylon screws. All the panels, including the removable one, are thermoformed Centra plastic. I believe James Bruton was the first one that started doing it that way. I might be wrong about that, but I followed him and a couple other people that were doing it that way. My panels actually didn't turn out as good as they could have. They turned out good enough for the most part, with the exception of two of them. Two of them just didn't work out. I couldn't get the plastic to, it wasn't molded to the shape well enough, and some of the corners here I couldn't get them to stick down, so two of the panels I had to replace. And rather than, because I built this, it's actually like this whole process. You build this wooden box and you line the inside of it with foil, and you heat these huge squares of plastic over the top of them until they're soft, and then you mold them over the sphere to get the rounded shape. And rather than doing that all again and getting results I wasn't happy with again, I actually bought some panels from another builder who his panels were looking a lot better than mine, so I just bought a set from him and replaced the two that weren't good enough. For the most part now, he's pretty smooth. There are a few spots where it's not perfectly smooth, but I don't think it's enough to... I don't think that's what's causing the issues with the head. I think that's a magnet mount related issue. But that's kind of how I did the panels. I was going to take the camera down into the garage and actually show the box that I made them with, but I have pictures on my computer of it, and the box is currently covered in junk, so I figured it would be easier to just show the pictures. But that's how the panels were formed. Then you go with a compass and a pencil and draw all the details in, and you take an engraving pen and you etch out all the details so it has that nice groove, and then you prime them and paint them. And I think I'm pretty happy with the way most of my panels turned out, except for the ones that didn't come out the exact right shape. That's the only thing I wasn't happy with. But that's about it for the panels. So now I'll take the actual robot out of the ball and show a little bit about how that works. Alright, so here's the inside of my droid. It's the Omni Wheel / hamster drive. I think the first person to go this route was Kevin Gorby, and another builder, David Alvarez, who actually is the same guy I got the replacement Sentra panels from, so huge thanks to him for all the advice. But he and I saw the video that Kevin Gorby had done about his Omni Wheel drive and started trying to come up with, David gets all the credit for coming up with his own version, and then I kind of based mine on his. We each have slight modifications and variations, different things that have worked better for each of us along the way, but that's where I got the basic idea from. And so most of the parts come from Servo City. I think I'll start at the bottom. I've got 10 pounds of weight down here, and then I've got two HD planetary motors from Servo City. I believe they're 165 RPM. And then I've got an 11.4 volt, it's a high voltage LiPo RC battery, and that supplies power to both of the motors, as well as, and I'm trying to remember because it's been so long since I've had them taken apart, I actually couldn't even remember how at first. But I believe I've got the 12 volts going into the Arduino, you know, with the pins coming out to the different servos and to the motor controller. I know the 12 volts goes into the motor controller itself. And then I've got an extra, it's just a pack of 4 AA's here to give, I believe it's 5 volts. I've got rechargeable ones in there, which is slightly different than regular voltage on regular AA's. But the 5 volts, or it might be 5.5, that goes to the Bluetooth receiver, the HC05. It goes to both of the servos. I've got one servo that tilts this. Get a better angle. One servo tilts this beam back and forth, and then the other servo rotates the head. I believe that's all that the 5 volt goes to. I've also got this string of LED lights in here. What I did for body lights, it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to go back down here to the floor. On the ball, since it's a hamster drive and you can't really put any electronics along the inside of the ball, to do the body lights, I just cut little sections in the panels where the lights should be and put colored plastic over it so that the LEDs on the robot shine through that and make it light up red or blue, depending. And let's see, I think that is the basic rundown of it. Let's see, this is the tilt servo is a high-tech HS785HB from Servo City, and then the rotation servo is an HS805BB. I thought it was ironic that the number of my servo had BB in it. but it seems to be the servo that worked out for me. I'm going to turn him on so I can show some of the head tilt and rotation and stuff, but I'm going to have to set the computer way back here because those LEDs are so bright. It's really hard to see. So I've got him hooked up through a HC05 Bluetooth module, and then I've got an app on my phone somewhere. The app I use is called Arduino RC. I don't know if you can see it. It's that one right there. And I don't know, I tried a few different Bluetooth apps, and this one seems to work the best. There are other ones where you can input more commands, but I only have around 9 or 10 commands anyway. I guess I should turn the droid on before I try to connect. That's pretty bright. Hopefully you can still see. It's connecting. And then I go into controller mode, and it kind of looks like a PlayStation controller or something. I think with my new droid I'm going to go a different route with, instead of Bluetooth, I think I'll use, and I don't know much about it yet, but I think I'm going to go like with RF and use an actual like RC controller. People seem to have better results with that. I've lost connection. Not too often, but I have lost connection a couple times with the Bluetooth. But I've got, the main motors. I've got them to where they can spin. I was trying to, part of the problem with his rolling is when he would start and stop. He would start and stop too suddenly, and that was part of what made the head fall off. So what I was trying to mess with was inputting some kind of Arduino code that would decelerate him a little bit more gradually. So when I hit forward and then I hit back, I don't have it set up quite right yet, but I had the gist of it. And then as far as the head movement, I can tilt back and forth. This, for some reason, that seems to be where I lose Bluetooth connection, is when I'm messing with the head tilt. But it is working now. And then I've also got the rotation. I would have actually shown some of that while it was still in the ball with the head on, but I've actually got all the magnets taken out of the head right now. I can show some of what I've got going on with the head though too. So this was, like I said, it was a mostly non-3D printed droid. The body panels were Sintra, and they were glued onto a polycarbonate sphere. There are a few 3D printed parts. The ring underneath the head, and I've got loose nuts and bolts rolling around inside from disassembling him. Yeah, the ring here is a 3D printed part that I had somebody else make for me. This aluminum band is actually just straight up a piece of aluminum that I got from Lowe's, and it was very, very difficult to get it bent into a perfect circle, but I did a decent job, I think, with that. I don't think I'll go that route again. I have the 3D printed dome ring for my next droid. But and then the main the radar eye and the HoloLens, those are also 3D printed, as are the antennas. I got the flexible antennas. I believe I got those from Matt Hobbs, and I apologize if that's wrong, but I think that's who I got those from. And then the main part of the dome itself is not 3D printed, even though it looks like it is. This is, I work at a grocery store, and this is actually one of the sample tray where we give out free samples. This is one of the lids to one of those. And I took a tape measure to work one day because I thought, man, that looks like the size of a BB-8 dome. And I measured it, and the dimensions were exact. I mean to the millimeter exact. So I ended up bringing it home. Yeah. And then painted it up, and I think it looks pretty good. As for the inside of it, the electronics and stuff, it's pretty basic. I've got little small magnets going around that hold the top on, and then I've got a little speaker in here which is definitely not loud enough to take him into any conventions or anything like that. It does. So far, the only public appearances he's made is the Last Jedi premiere, and we went up there a few times that weekend to the movie theater. It did okay for the movie theater, but it wasn't quite as loud as I wanted it to be, and I know if I take him to a convention, he'll need to be a lot louder. So he will be. And then for the sounds, I actually just took apart a Bluetooth speaker that I got from Walmart and put the electronics from that in here. That's pretty much all he's got going on. The magnets are already taken out, so I can show you kind of the setup that I had for the magnets. This was the magnet mount. This was also 3D printed by somebody else for me. Actually, if I take this apart, little bearing balls will spill out everywhere, because I've got these situated in here, the little ball casters, and then I've got little tiny bearing balls going all the way around to help it roll a little more smoothly. And I don't think I want that close to my laptop, honestly. I got my new magnets in today, and I have the 3D printed magnet mounts. So I guess now that I've shown BB-66 and how he works a little bit, I'm sure there's probably something I forgot, but if I think of it, I'll go back and film it. But I think now I'm going to go ahead and glue at least one of the magnets into one of these mounts. And so you guys can join me for that. Alright, so before I install my magnets, I'm going to go ahead and glue the legs to the upper dome mount here. I've got them in there, but they're not glued yet. So I remember in Carrie's instructional video, he said to make sure that the top of this piece was flush. So I don't know if it was my printer or if it's just the way, I don't know if this is normal or not, but mine, if they're flush on top, they do stick down just a little bit, but I don't think the bottom matters as much as the top. So I'm going to go ahead and get these glued in now. In the tutorial that I watched, I know he said to use, I think it was CA super glue. I already had some of this JB Weld epoxy. I've got a bunch of this actually, and so I'm going to see how this stuff works. Oh, I meant to start recording again as I was putting the last one in. I forgot. But anyway, I got all three of them in there, and they are completely flush against the top. So I guess now it's time to move on to the magnets. Alright, so I've got my magnet mounts here. I went ahead with a Sharpie just so I don't confuse myself and wrote N's and S's where the north and south magnets go, just in case I get confused while I'm doing this. These magnets are pretty dangerous and pretty scary. I don't think these are quite as big as the magnets that I had in the first version, but they're still pretty powerful. So to keep them from flying around the room and attaching themselves to things, I'm going to make sure I keep them. I'm actually going to set them down on the floor, the ones I'm not using, but also to try to keep myself from doing this the wrong way, I'm going to write an N. I don't actually know if this is north or south, but as long as I get them in the magnet mounts right, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to write an N on one side and an S on one side, and as I put them in, I'll just keep adding the label so I know which side is which. So I'm going to go ahead and mix some more glue and see if I can get the first one in here. Alright, so Carrie said to be pretty liberal with the glue, so I'm just going to gob it on down here in the on the bottom and around the edges. I'm just going to do one of these for right now because you don't want to start adding more magnets until the first one is completely dry. So I'm just going to do one, and then I'm going to go get something to eat and let this and the other piece I glued dry for about, I think he said about, well, I guess it would depend on what this kind of glue says, so I'll check that out in a second. But I'm expecting a few hours at least until I can put the next one in. Alright, so that's a pretty good amount of glue. My magnets, they don't seem to be quite as snug as his were in his video, so maybe I'll add a little thicker glue to make sure it makes contact. And then this hole is marked in, so I'm going to take the side that says S and put the S face down so that the north side will be facing out. And man, that goes in really easily. In his video, he had to push it in quite a bit. I don't know if it was, if it's my printer not being calibrated just right. Man, these are strong. Wow. I actually just became aware for some reason there's a spot in my floor that the magnets stick to. There's something metal under the floorboards. Yeah, these magnets, here I'll show the camera in a second once I can get this spacer out. My magnets are not completely flush with the outside of that hole. I wonder if it's supposed to be pushed out just a bit, or if my printer is way off, because I think that's supposed to stick right to the edge, or maybe I ordered the wrong magnets. I'll have to see if I can figure out why that is, but either way, I got one of them in. Alright, so I looked into why my magnets weren't sitting flush in my magnet mounts, and it turns out I'm an idiot and printed the magnet mounts for the 1/2 inch magnets and ordered the 3/8 inch magnets, which makes even less sense because the only reason I would have ordered the 3/8 magnets is for the Von jet, which is what I'm doing for my new droid. This new magnet mount that I'm trying to put together isn't for my new droid. It's for BB-66, who's kind of a Frankenstein anyway, so it really didn't matter which magnets I got. But because I did that, what I think I'm going to do, one sec. What I think I'm going to do is just glue 4 of the huge 1-inch magnets that were already in him into this BMM, and my only concern is that they're going to stick up a bit more, and I'm hoping the glue will still hold them in there. But if that works, then I'll just put 4 of those 1-inch ones in here, and I'm currently printing a new DMM for the 3/8 magnets, so I can just have 4 bigger magnets in the body and 4 smaller ones in the head, and then I'll have 4 of the 3/8 ones left over for when I get to BB-0's magnets. So that's my plan. The only thing that really concerns me is that they may not stay in here that well, but we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and try to glue one in. I don't really have much to lose because if it doesn't work out, I'll just... I can't really find Carrie's file for the 3/8 inch body magnet mount. So for now I'm going to do this, and if this doesn't work out, then eventually I'll just use the 3/8 for the body and the head. Okay, so on second thought, I did some editing. I edited the video a bit and realized it's getting a little long, so I think I'll end this one and do that magnet stuff in the next one. Everybody have a great day.